I love a mean spreadsheet. My name's Nichole Hayden, and I am a mom of four, um, many ages. So from 4 to 17, so two boys, two girls. And I have been in my career field ever since I can remember with four children. So since I was 21, so I'm now 38. Um, so a long time. And my field has really been accounting, but then I shifted over to kind of understanding numbers, but then wanted to know where the numbers were derived from. So I got curious as to where those came from. So I shifted into budget. And so that's primarily my field now is the budget. So I'm a budget analyst for the Office of Management and Budget as part of the Executive Office of the President. So I work at the White House, primarily on VA, Veterans Affairs, and Defense Health programs. So really very fast-paced environment. Before that, kind of worked with the Department of Defense early on in my career, and then I worked in 4 years in the private sector in between Department of Defense and the Office of Management and Budget. So a little bit about my personal life and background. Like I said, I had four children, but my background mostly is I attended Catholic school as a very young child. We moved around as my dad was part of the Air Force. And so we were able to, kind of experience new places, but also got to experience a lot of different Catholic education. And it wasn't until high school that I actually went into public school, but I maintained my faith and as part of a youth group in this area of Bryantown, Maryland. That's a little bit about me. So I majored in computer science at first. Going to college, I got a full ride scholarship, an ROTC scholarship from the Department of Army at Florida Tech in Florida. And I really enjoyed that field. I really appreciated the numbers aspect of it and really had fun. However, I couldn't imagine myself sitting in a back room coding all day with no human interaction. And I took my first accounting course my first year of college, and I fell in love with the numbers. And really that charted my path towards a new degree, which was in accounting. And it sent me home because I was very homesick. Sent me home back to Maryland to finish my degree at a 2-year College of Southern Maryland. And then I was able to transfer to a 4-year college at the University of Maryland to finish out my accounting degree. So that's kind of what got me into that field. I also, at the same time, right at the end of my 4th year of college, I started an internship at the federal government in an accounting office for the Department of Defense. And so I was going to work during the day and going to school at night. When I finished my bachelor's degree, I decided I'm going to keep going. I didn't have kids yet. So in 2004, I started my master's at the Webster University, and I was able to complete that in 18 months. And I actually ended up opening my aperture a bit from the very direct accounting field to more broader aspect of business administration. So I got my master's in business administration in 2005. I also decided at that time that once I finished that the federal government just wasn't enough for me. So I went on to Northrop Grumman and did like 4 years in the private sector So at that time, I still wanted more and more information. So I decided last year to go back and get a master's in national security and resource strategy. So applying that accounting and business administration to the larger apparatus of national security. So that's why I chose what I chose. So I think it's similar to my degree path. So really enjoyed numbers. And so as an intern, while I was getting my degree, um, I really was just very curious. It's a, for lack of a better word, curiosity really drove. Um, okay, I got the transactions down. I can do the accounting, but where do those numbers derive from? How do we get there? And so that shifted me over into budget. And so that budget apparatus really started to craft where um, the numbers were derived from themselves to get to the accountants who did the transaction portion. So I shifted and applied my accounting degree and my business administration to the larger budget apparatus. So that's really how I got into my current career field, and which I love. And I've been doing it a long time. I've shifted more from budget to also adding policy to it. So, all right, well, what policy does it make to do the requirements of a budget? And then that budget then goes into a transaction, which is accounting nature. So it kind of all flows through, but just that curiosity really continued to pique my interest and keep me engaged. And just over the years transitioned to where I am today. I love a mean spreadsheet. So I enjoy doing just in analysis. Really, is what it is. You know, there's numbers on a spreadsheet. They don't mean a whole lot until you figure out, all right, what trends, what what's the questions behind it, and that critical thinking path, that those critical thinking skills that I learned throughout college, really applied to that day to day, allows me to help an agency um, derive whatever. A lot of times there isn't a budget problem. Most times it is a, okay, do we ask the right questions? Are you sure you're using your money as best you can? And that's all derived from a mean spreadsheet. I would say saying no. So there is a finite budget, and that number is a number. And every administration is different. However, there's a bigger government budget that also requires resources. And so when you have many competing priorities, you have to say no to some things that are could be great government requirements. However, there's only so much money to go around. And so I would say that kind of building that strategic narrative around how to engage some of that political narrative that gets crafted is like partly the hardest job is to say no. But really the relationships that you build with your agency during the course of a year makes saying no a little easier, but it's still hard. So I'd say the most rewarding is to see something that you have worked with an agency. So let's say a requirement of any sort. So for instance, they provided resources and we were able to get a full bill through Congress for opening up veterans care, healthcare to more than the 10 million veterans that were there. And so those veterans that needed it the most, this allowed them to seek care if they couldn't get access in the veterans hospital at private healthcare facilities in the community. So even at the extra cost, we were able to get veterans within 30 days, seen within 30 days of their medical need. And so this was not the case in all places. And in fact, in the Phoenix healthcare system, they had veterans dying on waiting lists, waiting for an appointment. And so I felt like that was the biggest part of legislation that I worked from the ground up on crafting legislation, budgeting for it, and getting it over the finish line with Congress and with the administration at the time to really open up care to the veterans in need. I would say being a woman. So frankly, there wasn't many women in my career field, and not many with the same drive. I would say there was probably more with the same drive. They just didn't have the voice. And sometimes I felt like I was the voice of women in this career field, heavily military and heavily male. So the males were in charge and we were the worker bees. And so breaking through that was difficult. However, I never felt like I was owed something because I'm a woman, but I always felt like I carried this extra weight on my shoulders because I wanted to be the first woman that did something that was different than, the generation before me had done. So I felt like I helped pave the way for some of my colleagues who were working alongside me because I had a large voice. So I'd say number one would be intellectual curiosity. So as I it's kind of thematic through my responses, but that is what gets you to understand what connects with what and how then to apply your critical thinking skills that is necessary to then put the picture together. And then third, I would say is relationships. You can't get anywhere without building relationships with people, and people skills matter. Being able to listen, they say something, being able to hold back and then go back and think about it and churn a correct, appropriate answer to continue to maintain the relationships that you build. So those would be my top three attributes, outside of some technical skills that you would need. But if you have those three things, anybody can learn how to do counting and budget. It's those three things, though, and that drive and that passion that give you that edge up. So for a long time in my career, I did not have children. So because I started very, very early while I was still in college. And I would say that drive never went away even after we had children. So I had never planned on having kids. My work was my life. God was also there. I just didn't feel like that was going to be the path for me. However, I met my husband when I was 25 after finishing my master's. And, we kind of hit it off, and, children became a part of our lives shortly thereafter. And I can't imagine not having a big family now. We didn't design that way. God had a plan for us. And I feel like now my work is a means, right? So I enjoy it. I still love what I do. However, the family comes first, God comes first. So now that is transitioned in my life and I feel like the pandemic even helped me kind of fully embrace like what's God's plan for me. So I still wanted to have some control. I didn't give it all to him. I was only giving him pieces of myself. And the pandemic really helped to put things in perspective and realize that no, he's in control. As much as you want to think you're in control, he is in control. So give it all up to him. And so when I did that, I've been able to have more a sense of peace, and I'm not always worried about the work-life balance because the life comes first with our family, with God, and then work is second. I've never been so committed to where we have, but it's taken me this long to get there. We've had spurts of it, but it's definitely been a journey. So I would say before children, it was more of okay, I'm going to mass on Sundays. That was to the extent of how invested I was in my relationship with God. I very much, I feel like I was running the motions, not really invested in what God had to offer, nor what God was telling me to do. And I felt like when I met my husband and and he went through the transition to become a Catholic. That was when we really reinvigorated our choice, and I came back to the faith very clearly. However, as I mentioned, I still wanted to have control, and so I didn't realize this then until many years later. But I wanted to make sure that our children were brought up in the faith and that we were committed to God and what God had for our family. So we practiced natural family planning in advance for God and what He had in store for how big our family would get. And lo and behold, 4 children later, I think God has finally given me the okay to stop. I don't know yet, but we're still keeping that open. But I feel like I had more children. I mean, I just got even closer to God, and being in the American Heritage Girls troop even had me even more invested. So I think as years go by, I just continue to get more invested. And we did a Life in the Spirit seminar with church a couple of years ago, and that's really reinvigorated. You always need this reinvigoration because the mundane life can get in the way. It feels like a chore. You're getting through this one routine, and you have to make sure that we are committed together and we hold each other accountable. Hayden's very good at that. Make sure we're praying every night and making sure that they're communicating with God in their own way. And so I feel like we're in a better place now than we were 10 years ago. And we just keep getting better. And that's all hopefully God can ask of us, is that we continue to maintain that relationship. Yes. So my advice would be, 4-year colleges are great, right? However, having some experience in that field while going to college really puts into perspective, are you sure you want to pursue this career after you've invested these years? So I strongly believe that working in the career field of your choice, internship, paid, unpaid, whatever it is, while also getting your degree, will help you figure out, 1, if it's the right career field for you, but 2, give you a leg up when you actually get into the workplace and get your degree. You've already had so many years of experience. And then 3, maintain curiosity, because those skills and those critical thinking skills are important for not only my career field, but any career field. Those would be my tips.